Hey there, Evan Nathaniel Grimm. Thank you for joining my June 2023 forecast. I'm going to be walking you through the month of June for all 12 zodiac signs. So, as per usual, I'm going to go over the dominant themes, the overarching themes, and then I'm going to dive into each and every sign. So, as per usual, I'm going to show you a visual so you can follow along. And, what I'm going to be doing is taking you through again sort of the Sag full moon that we're going to have at the beginning of June. And then towards the middle of June, we actually have a Gemini new moon. I'm going to explain also some of the ingresses, retrogrades, the motions that the planets are making. And again, I'm going to translate that for your sign. And as I go through, you want to prioritize your rising sign and then track your sun and moon sign. So the way that I'm thinking about June, when I was doing my research, I was thinking, okay, what's the dominant transit? And really, to me, the dominant transit is Mars and Venus being in Leo for most of the month, squaring Jupiter and Uranus, and sort of, in late May, opposing Pluto as well. And we have Pluto also squaring Jupiter. So there's a lot of fixed sign energy here, even though it's Gemini season for much of this month. We really do have a lot of fixed energies activated here. Some other noteworthy changes. We have Pluto going back into Capricorn on June 11th. Saturn retrogrades June 17th. Neptune actually retrogrades June 30th. Venus enters a pre-shadow phase June 19th before it ends up retrograding on July 22nd. Venus officially enters Leo June 5th. Mercury, by the way, enters Gemini June 13th. Mercury enters Cancer later on in June, around June 26th. By the way, the lunar nodes are in the final degrees of Scorpio and Taurus. They will eventually shift into Aries and Libra July 17th, but that's for another forecast. So why am I walking you through all of those dates? Just to show you that there are a lot of changes here in this month. And what we're seeing is a gradual slowdown, actually, with some of the outer planets and social planets. And that really makes Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and Uranus the momentum drivers here. So they are driving really most of the momentum. And so the composite meaning of these planets is initiation, expansion, experimentation with values, finances, and relationships. And there's really two key tracks, though. We're on the one hand taking alternate approaches to money potentially and monetization with that square to Jupiter, and also a more non-conformist approach to relationships with that square to Uranus, and at least a sign-based square between Venus and Uranus. So we're talking about either community dynamics or less rigid concepts of a traditional relationship. And so, the way I was thinking about this, I was like, what's like the visual for June? If I was just like to summarize this in one analogy, I feel like nobody is really sitting in the bleachers during this time. People are running out onto the field, they're in the sun, they're basking in their joy and their creative self-expression, and they're engaging in this with other groups of people. You are doing this with other people. And so this could happen through romantic relationships, romantic connections, could happen through new friendships, online or in-person communities, conferences. But again, so it's not necessarily about romantic relationships, but if you're already in a relationship, you may seek an extra spark through that relationship or an extra spark elsewhere. But those who are just kind of emerging from the past few years will enjoy tons of new connections. So to my mind, I feel like this is actually a pretty, there's a lot of levity. There's a lot of levity to this time. If you just look at, this is just a snapshot of the Sag full moon, which I'll talk about in a second, but you're going to see right here on the bottom of the screen, Mars and Venus will be in Leo pretty much the entire month after June 5th. So from June 5th onward, we have Mars and Venus co-present in Leo. Leo is not just dramatic. It's not just about performance. Leo is charismatic. Leo is just fun. It's about joy. And it is about romance. It is about the honeymoon phase. And it's squaring Jupiter, which is enhancing that. And Jupiter and Taurus wants more of the indulgences in life. Jupiter wants more of the pleasures in life. And you even have an exciting Mercury-Uranus conjunction at that time. So anyways, let's actually walk through really briefly the actual full and new moon cycles during this time. And then we will go through each sign. So there's a Sag full moon. So we're looking at a Sag full moon here, sort of like, really June 3rd here in the sort of late late June 3rd, at least Pacific time. There will be a Sag full moon. So, you know, when I think about a Sag full moon there, this is really about, you know, speaking your truth. Sagittarius is conveying a message. Sagittarius is the great teacher, but it's also the perspective. It's the traveling. It's bringing more of the outside world in. I'm thinking about the Sag new moon as full moon, sorry, as speaking your truth. The full moon is illuminating something. And Jupiter, the ruler of that, is squaring Mars. So that's just a lot of hypercharged energy. We also do have Venus opposite Pluto at that time. So there could be some again, financial empowerment, but also financial struggles or disputes. But even within relationships, there's revelations, there's secrets coming out potentially. And then Saturn's kind of at a wide T-square with that sun and moon, which means there's a feeling of like finality to something. And there is actually more grounded, serious approach. It's not just, you know, it's not just pie in the sky type of stuff. But I do think that it's a very potent full moon, because Jupiter, which rules Sag, is right there in Taurus on the North Node, basically squaring Mars. So we're talking about very fated moments when we step into our energy in a new way, where maybe we take a trip, maybe we start a new educational path, maybe we start singing, maybe we start speaking, maybe we give a speech, maybe we sell something, right? We're with Sag, really, we're really evangelizing something, right? And then after that, we have the Gemini new moon on June 17th, which I'll show right now. And the Gemini new moon is at 26 degrees of Gemini. So by the way, the Sag full moon you want to track where 13 degrees of Sag is in your chart. That's where you're bringing something to a conclusion. So if you had Mercury in Sag, maybe you're bringing an agreement or a contract to a conclusion. If you have Venus in Sag, maybe you're bringing a financial situation or a relationship to a conclusion. But full moons don't just have to be endings, it's illumination. And then we have a Gemini new moon on June 17th. So for that, track where 26 degrees of Gemini is, and that's where there's a new beginning in your life. Now, Mercury, the ruler of the Gemini new moon, is in Gemini, and it's sextiling Venus, exactly. And then there's a Venus-Mars conjunction in Leo, squaring Jupiter again. So yet again, we have this sort of expansion of this Leo and Taurus energy. So I think it really behooves me to talk about the connection between Taurus and Leo. So all the fixed signs have a connection. So Taurus is really about what are your innate gifts, your natural talents, what is your sense of self-worth, also your personal resources. And then Leo is taking those natural talents and performing them, expressing them creatively, actually taking a risk to present them to people, maybe on a stage or in front of a camera, in front of a ring light. And so a lot of people are going to feel this passion to share their gifts with an audience, whether that audience is your family, your social media followers, your customers. It doesn't really matter who that is, but you're actually projecting that out a little bit more with that fire energy. And you know, Saturn's retrograde, so you're thinking about, you're reconsidering some decisions you've made. Pluto's retrograde, you're going inward to gauge your transformation journey. So I think ultimately, though, it's a very powerful time, because that Mars-Venus conjunction before a Venus retrograde, you're initiating, like I said, you're initiating and striking so many new connections, which is perfectly timed for the summer, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. And you're making these new connections. And then when Venus retrogrades, you know, it's going to square Uranus and Jupiter again and all these other planets later in the summer and the fall. And you're going to be like, at that point, just kind of thinking about priorities. So reflecting on who you want to surround yourself with. You've been maybe reflecting on how you're making money. And that's the last piece I was going to talk about is financial. So with Pluto just being in Aquarius recently, Venus squared Jupiter, Jupiter and Uranus co-present. This is about new forms of monetization. So using your natural talents, which is Taurus, and digitizing them, using platforms, tech platforms to, and plugging into those platforms to scale up a business, an entrepreneurial project, business, and really monetizing your innate gifts and not having to work for anybody. Like a lot of people are going to do that. Because Leo is passion. It's not just romance. It's like, what do I really want to do with my life? So this is when a lot of people are taking the leap, right? So I think of this Gemini new moon as like reigniting your passion, either via relationships or you're just reigniting your passion and finding a path. to monetization. So very quickly, I'm just going to rearrange the chart, and then I'm going to talk about each and every rising sign, or sorry, zodiac sign. So again, prioritize your rising sign as I go through, and I time stamped it. So go and find your rising sign, go and find your sun sign, go and find your moon sign after that. But honestly, if you have your Venus in a different sign, your Saturn in a different sign, you can actually apply even those planets to this forecast through what's called a derivative chart. So if you have Saturn in Capricorn, maybe look at the Capricorn forecast, because relative to Saturn, it will be relevant, meaning it will show you how your Saturn is being influenced by transits. So your sense of responsibility, your professional life, your obedience, your goals in life, that will actually matter. And not every astrologer agrees with this, but you can create derivative charts and set any planet on the ascendant and glean something interesting. So let's go back to the screen. So now we're talking about, first off, what I'm going to do, just to be clear about this, I'm really, what I'm doing is setting the chart to just like the middle, right? The middle of the month, which in this case happens to be the Gemini new moon. But I'm going to talk about the Sag full moon on June 3rd and the impact on your sign, and then the Gemini new moon and the impact on your sign. And I will also, of course, speak broadly to, or specifically as well, to any retrogrades and how they affect you, and any other ingresses. So let's start off with Aries. So Aries, sun, moon, and rising. What are you experiencing in June? So keep in mind that the Sag full moon for you, that's going to be accenting, that's going to be in your 9th house. So we're talking with Sag up in the 9th house. You're not seeing it in this diagram. Remember, I'm just showing you for the sake of a visual, the middle of June, which also coincides with the Gemini new moon. But the Sag full moon, that's illuminating your 9th house. And the full moon is, again, an illumination, a culmination, something coming to fruition and possibly ending. But on that Sag full moon, we do have a little bit of a grand cross still. So we have Pluto at 0 Aquarius opposite Venus. And we have it opposite somewhat Mars, and then squaring the nodes in Jupiter. So we have that fixed grand cross. So let's just briefly talk about that. So, with this, all this fixed energy, and, for most Aries, if you're using a whole sign system, it's going to be in your sort of 2nd house, 8th house, 5th house, and 11th house, that fixed grand cross. But, that grand cross, you have Jupiter in your 2nd house now. So for Aries in the month of June, you're starting to meet possibly some of your financial goals. Your self-confidence is starting to swell up, and you're starting to have the confidence that you can attract more resources. You also are getting a better perspective on your innate talents, your innate gifts, and how you want to utilize those and apply those in your life. Simultaneously, you have Mars in Leo in the 5th. I think you're feeling a little bit more, again, passionate about things too, though. So you're starting to feel more passionate. Maybe, again, some of you may be initiating a new romance, but I think for a lot of you, you're just putting more energy into what makes you happy. And with the Sag full moon, you're focused maybe on applying these things to publishing or travel or education. So maybe you're traveling somewhere to reclaim your passion. Maybe you're traveling somewhere because you have the money to travel now because Jupiter is in your 2nd house. Some of you may be striking that new financial opportunity around this time because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and for you, Jupiter is mostly in your 2nd house. And again, some of you are finding a romantic spark or picking up a new, a creative hobby again. But Saturn's in your 12th house. So this looks like a pretty fun time for Aries because, on the one hand, because it's like June, I see, especially in the early part of June here, there's this influx of very heart-centered energy of like, what do I love to do in front of people? Do I love to perform, act? Do I love to sell? Do I love to present? Do I love to paint? Like, what do you love to do? Do I love to play music? But whatever you're doing there in the 5th house with Mars, you have a chance to actually earn money off that with Jupiter in the 2nd. So maybe it's, and maybe it's not money right away. It's just that this performance. So I think a lot of Aries are performing something. They're putting on a show in their own way. It doesn't have to be big. So if you're watching this video and you're like, well, Evan, I'm not booking a show. I don't have a show planned. It's like, that doesn't really matter. you have an opportunity to get on the stage. People may ask you to join them on stage, or you may put on your own little performance in front of like a couple of your friends. You may just find yourself being funnier than usual, or just enjoying the sun, or again, doing something that is just for the love of it. But I think there's a connection in which that empowers you to think about, okay, is there a path to monetization? Can I be rewarded for these endeavors? But I think in general, again, with the Sag full moon, there's just like this rekindling of an optimistic belief in the world, or in, you have a better perspective on things. And pay attention to what kind of perspectives you have around June 3rd, or where you're traveling, what kind of environment you're in, because I think that's going to inspire you to ultimately step into those gifts more fully. Maybe even find alternative sources of revenue. I think that some Aries could do that. So that's what I'm seeing on the Sag full moon. But then we have the Gemini new moon, June 17th, which you're seeing basically right here. And to be honest with you, I think the Gemini new moon is probably going to be a bigger deal, because I'm just seeing this, again, Mercury and Mars and Leo. That's going to be really strong. And so for you, the Gemini new moon, which I've talked about as reigniting your passion, we have Mercury, the ruler, sextiling Venus. We have Venus, Mars conjunct in Leo, squaring Jupiter. I mean, I'm almost kind of jealous. I wish I was in Aries rising at this time, because, Mars and Venus in the 5th together, that looks real strong for just amusements. So I'm just picturing this psychically as like Aries being at like an amusement park or a carnival, or like a gala. You're doing something sort of that's, again, it's just fun, but it's also, for some of you, it's a date. It's a date that you feel so comfortable with this person. You feel like you can talk to this person about anything, because the Gemini new moon's in your 3rd house. So you're starting a new conversation with someone who's more aligned with your heart, and makes you feel young again. And Mars Venus, if you're creative at all, a lot of you are going to be starting a song or a book or a painting, or you're going to be starting a podcast. Like, I think there's something really creative here in the 3rd house as well. So you're making something. So again, it doesn't have to be a date. Some Aries risings and Aries sun and moon are bringing people into this conversation through engaging dialogue. So I think that's the key for Aries rising and sun and moon. You're striking a charismatic style and tone. You're engaging people in a dialogue, either on a date or on a podcast or on a soccer field. You're doing something for the joy of it. And Gemini rules neighbors, so maybe you're joining an intramural sports league. I mean, I always think Leo, especially in the 5th house too, has some associations with athletics. So maybe some of you are joining a team. Like, Venus can be about relationships in that sense as well. Squaring Jupiter, it's making you feel really good. Some of you may have traveled on the Sag full moon to some kind of natural, kind of remote kind of place, and that inspired you when you came back home. But it feels very like a triumphant time for Aries. But if you're an Aries, you got to invest in your romantic side, your creative side, or just doing something that gets you in the honeymoon phase. But I think it is communications related with that Gemini energy. So that's really positive. So, some of you may even have like a positive experience reconnecting with a sibling, which is Gemini. So you may get support from a sibling. But again, keep in mind, Saturn's retrograding in your 12th around this time. So you are reflecting on the structures that you want to let go of, because Saturn in your 12th house is not easy. So there is a tinge of, there's a somber tone underneath some of this, because while Saturn's in your 12th, some of you are saying goodbye to an authority figure. Some of you are saying goodbye to a company at this time. But I think a lot of Aries risings will step into an entrepreneurial role this summer, because Mars conjunct Venus is like also thinking, I'm going to make money on my own. I'm going to build this on my own. And I'm going to make money off this confidently because it's squaring Jupiter. So I feel comfortable that I've given you enough information. I think you should be very happy with this news. You know, I guess the last thing I would say, Mercury, it'll be in your third house for much of June in Gemini. So communicating a lot, answering a lot of phone calls, sending a lot of emails. Eventually, towards the end of the month, it'll enter Cancer in your fourth. So, sorting out contracts in the home, appointments, talking to your landlord. But I think that, again, the overarching tone here is that you are striking up a passion for something communications related, or you're reinvesting in a creative hobby. Now, Pluto will retrograde back into Cap, so it's kind of going back in your 10th house. So you may be reflecting on the career and how much evolution you still need to go through in your career. But just lead with the heart right now, and you should be in good shape. So now let's go into Taurus. So I want to talk about Taurus. Let's start off again with the Sag full moon. So the Sag full moon, again, around this time, we do have, for Tauruses, we have Sag in the 8th house, right? So the Sag full moon is going to be in the 8th house. The 8th house is all about finances, shared resources, things that we don't always discuss openly with people. So again, it could be finances, but it could also be like physical intimacy, topics like that. But on the Sag full moon in the 8th house, I see for a lot of you, especially with Jupiter now in Taurus, the Sag full moon, you may be moving, investing in a new home, or planning to buy a new home. Generally, you may be feeling more optimistic and hopeful at this time as well, and maybe feeling like moving, because again, Jupiter is in Taurus now. So let's just give Tauruses some credit here. They've gone through a lot. They've suffered quite a bit with Saturn and Aquarius forming. It was upon the 10th, and as we say in traditional astrology, Saturn was in the 10th house aspect to Taurus. And I think that was putting a lot of pressure on your career aspirations. But now Saturn's in the 11th house, which is more, I think, is a little bit easier. That's helping you solidify communities, friendships, manifesting, your role in an organization. But the key now is Jupiter's in Taurus, right? So for Tauruses, and that Taurus new moon in May was really nice for you. The Jupiter and Taurus energy is giving you this levity, this buoyancy, this optimism, that you can travel anywhere, that you can enjoy the richness of nature or life, or you can reach out for more. You can take in more of the outside world. And the Sag full moon is ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter is really accented here. So you have a lot of forward momentum right now. And Tauruses, you're in a growth phase. You're in a growth phase now that Jupiter's in Taurus. And so on the Sag full moon in the 8th house, maybe this is a very intense moment that's brought to the surface where you're merging with somebody completely, or maybe you're merging bank accounts, or maybe you're talking about investing in a home. Maybe you're talking about moving to a new apartment or investing in a mortgage. So I think the Sag full moon, even though it's in the 8th house, so there could be a little bit of financial discrepancy or disputes and emotional dialogues about finances. I think Jupiter in the 1st house is helping you attract a lot of good luck, get the perspective you need on things. And you're feeling like, you can land on your feet right now because you have that perspective. You're feeling more like there's more gratitude, and you're enjoying, again, the finer things in life, or just the richness in life. Now, I just want to briefly mention it with Mars in the 4th around that time. I mean, there could be some tension in the home, though. So, or you're initiating this new home project or moving homes once again. And with Pluto still kind of retrograding in the 10th house, though, in Aquarius, you're kind of thinking about how to balance your home life with your career transformation. Because a lot of Tauruses, you're transforming through, through your career right now, which is Pluto in the 10th. Although the 10th house can also be a parent or an authority figure. So some of you may have lost an authority figure over the last few months when Pluto entered Aquarius. So some of you may, someone may have passed the last few months. You may have had to travel for that. But anyways, for Tauruses, I feel pretty good about that Sag full moon. I think that you're getting more, more perspective on your healing journey, something that was subconsciously buried coming to the surface, or again, financial matters are coming up and you're feeling more optimistic about your finances, maybe all of a sudden. So the Gemini new moon is in the second house. So the Gemini new moon is, in the second house, which is all about, of course, natural talents, personal finances, your innate gifts, your sense of self-worth, things like that. So that new moon in the second house, I think that's the birth of maybe a new income, a new financial opportunity, an awareness of how you want to incorporate your natural gifts into your career. We got to think about Mercury, the ruler of the Gemini new moon, sextiling Venus and Mars in Leo. So I think Taurus you may be getting the assets or the finances that you need to renovate your home or beautify your home. You're going to be dressing up your home very differently in June. And if you bought my 2023 forecast 6 months ago, way back in November, I talked about this. I said that Tauruses would be like remodeling their homes in June. This is why you want to also just consider getting my annual forecast at the beginning of the year, because then you can anticipate these things much sooner. But anyways, a lot of you are definitely like getting more artwork, investing in, putting the artwork different places in the home. There's an interior designing of the home that's maybe going on, and which isn't a bad thing at all. And some of you are entertaining more guests at your home. Maybe you're reconnecting with family. Keep in mind that Venus will retrograde at some point in Leo. So maybe you're entertaining people in the home who you will later revisit relationships with in the future. So that Mars Venus conjunction is also squaring your Jupiter in the first. So I think that you're entertaining a lot of relationships in the home that are beneficial to you. So maybe they're giving you perspectives on where you want to travel or what you want to study. So I don't necessarily see that as conflict in the home. Actually, I feel like at that point it's a little bit more, the home is a place and a space for creativity. The home is a place for creative expression, creative inspiration. And maybe I could see some of you like putting little souvenirs in your home. You're setting up like these souvenirs from all the places you've traveled with Jupiter in the first, and it's conjuring this idea of like, let's travel further. Let's keep booking trips. Like, I think that's actually, again, that's a pretty exciting conjunction. Now, at this point, we also have Saturn retrograding. So maybe you're reflecting on the organizations you're a part of or the friendships that you've committed to. So, you want to reflect on that. But overall, I think Taurus is like, you're really balancing out your home life in June. You're probably traveling to new places. You're beautifying your home. You're reconnecting with family, likely in a good way. You are thinking certainly about how you want to finance a home project or maybe how you want to invest in a home. I think money is huge for Taurus in June, especially as it pertains to home. And maybe you're investing in something that's connected or adjacent to your family. So let's talk about Gemini. So Gemini, the month of June, we have, again, we'll start off with the Sag full moon, which again, you're not seeing on the screen here, but I'll just talk about it. The Sag full moon, which is on June 3rd, this is an ending or an illumination of something. And in your seventh house, that could be the illumination of a relationship, an emotional moment in a relationship, or it could be the end of a relationship. So, for some of you, again, it doesn't have to be the end of a relationship. Maybe you're just having a really strong connection with somebody, opening up emotionally with them. And also, though, keep in mind, against that backdrop, you have a spiritual expansion going on because you have Jupiter in your 12th house now. You're having a lot of epiphanies with the Mercury-Uranus conjunction at that time. And also, we have Mars and Leo on the Sag full moon, which means, you're potentially writing or communicating a lot, investing in your skills, sending a lot of emails, phone calls, text messages. If you're in sales as a Gemini, you're going to be selling a lot at this time, connecting with a lot of people, a lot of conversations happening. Keep in mind, you also do have major responsibilities in your career, which could be impacting those relationships. So So Geminis, in the early part of June, I could see you having a little bit of a heated moment with a partner, a significant partner. But I think that it's actually quite nice. It's almost like ultimately it leads you to a place where you're sort of softening your walls, if you have any. And you're saying like, okay, like, yeah, maybe I do need to work on this. And the ruling planet of that Sag full moon is Jupiter in the 12th, which is like, oh, maybe I need to think about how I'm escaping in the 12th house. Am I escaping or am I transcending? So Geminis, some of you could clean up some of your nightlife habits. You may you may trade in like a toxic habit for something more meditation related. I think your, mental well-being could improve with Jupiter in the 12th. You're just seeing, I mean, when I had Jupiter in my 12th about 11 years ago in Gemini, I remember like getting so many downloads and like seeing the future. I literally remember seeing about 10 years into the future at that time. And I wrote an entire book, in like 5 weeks based on that vision. So I think Jupiter in the 12th is quite exciting. You're going to have a lot of visions. You're going to be maybe seeking out mindfulness exercises and tactics there. But with the Sag full moon, there's a partner that's helping you see this big picture. But I want to talk about the Gemini new moon because I think that's a bigger deal in a way. It could be, at least, because the new moon in the first house, I mean, that's a new you, right? Like the new moon in the first house is quite positive usually. So this is a time when you want to set intentions around like a new venture, maybe announcing something about yourself or a new project you're embarking on. And Mars and Venus are conjunct in Leo in that third house. So you're having a really, beautiful conversation with somebody. Maybe you're talking about something, starting a relationship with someone through a conversation. Maybe some of you, again, are selling things. Others, I think, are investing in a creative writing project. So I think for Geminis, the new moon on June 17th could be the beginning of a new communications project, again, a podcast, a writing project, or selling something, talking about money, learning about financial responsibility, financial investing. But I think you're just socializing a lot. If I had to like really distill this down, I think you're socializing like almost more than even you're used to as a Gemini. I think you're just meeting a lot of people, maybe in the neighborhood, maybe you're reconnecting with siblings, but ultimately some people in your immediate environment, you're really connecting with them. And if you're a student and you go to school, you have classes, you're going to be building a lot of bonds like through those classes and through that educational program. But generally, this is a hyper social time for Geminis. And the socializing the people that you talk to at that time, they could be like very strong. They could turn into very strong relationships, romantically, platonically, financially. Like you're meeting a lot of people who could have financial opportunities for you with Venus in the third there. But I think Venus in the third, it's like, if you're looking for a job, like this is an amazing new moon for just sending out those messages on LinkedIn saying, hey, I'm looking for an opportunity. I think Geminis are in the best position actually to just like cast a wide net with their social lives. And some of that could be romantic with Leo. Some of that could be creative. Some of that could be writing, creative writing. But I think Geminis in general, you just want to cast a wide net at this time. And again, with Saturn retrograde in your 10th, you're probably rethinking some of your career goals at this time. And no fear though, no worries about that, because Mars and Venus in the third, like that, there's a lot of opinions there being thrown around, but a lot of conversations being ignited, and people will have answers that you're looking for. So like, is this the right career? Is there a better option for me? You'll get those answers. You will get those answers in this month. So I feel really good. I feel pretty good about Geminis. Sun's in Gemini at that time as well. So Geminis, just be social, which I know you can do. Sag for Cancers. Let's talk about Cancers. The Sag full moon for you is in your 6th house. So the Sag full moon in the 6th house for Cancers, you're probably approaching your health in a new way, or your work style in a new way. You're thinking about co-working relationships differently. You're thinking about your daily routines differently. Some of you may be ending a work project, ending a relationship, meaning a work relationship with a coworker. Like maybe you have a coworker who's leaving the company. You know, some of you may be getting more perspective on your health. I think a lot of Cancers are like hitting the gym. They're hitting the gym. They're like, how do I refine my health? How do I get my health in a better place? So I'm foreseeing a lot of Cancers like with new gym memberships or you know, again, new exercise regimens. Some Cancers may also again just you know, put a lot more kind of you know, take a different approach again to their work process as well. So you may have a new approach there. And the ruling planet Jupiter is in Taurus in your 11th. So I think, you know, you're looking to make more room for socializing. So some of you may be changing your work routines to socialize more. Some of you may be exercising more. For some reason that motivates you to socialize or attract more people into your life. I don't know. Like, but there's a connection there between the 6th house and the 11th house. That's really interesting. You know, also the Sag, you know, I think that with Cancers, I want to talk about the Mars Leo, right, in the 2nd house. That means you're highly motivated to indulge in the pleasures of life, but also maybe motivated to make more money. And then also when I think about you know, the Saturn in the ninth and retrograding, you're getting serious about a long distance trip or maybe a publishing opportunity, and you're thinking, I got to make this happen. Now with Jupiter in the 11th, there's a lot of community expansion. So actually similar to Gemini's in a way, you are activating a social house here with the 11th house. You're making more connections. It's easier for you to make friends in June. So I think for Cancers, like, you know, say yes to social outings, introduce yourself to people, go to conferences. I think some of you are traveling for conferences. You're getting opportunities to do that. You're joining new communities. You know, maybe you're doing a sound bath with a group. Maybe you just did that actually because Jupiter recently entered Taurus. But let's also talk about the Gemini new moon. So the Gemini new moon is in your 12th house. That's a little bit more spiritual. So the new moon in the 12th, it could be a new spiritual practice. So maybe, and in Gemini, you're talking. So maybe you're talking with spirits. Maybe you're talking with ancestors. Maybe you're having a conversation with someone with a past life connection. Maybe you are, you know, channeling a little bit, having a dialogue with something in a dream or someone. Maybe you are, you know, again, just tapping into a different type of spiritual practice or learning. Gemini, you know, Gemini sometimes just wants to know. So for some Cancers, you're learning more about a different spiritual practice. Maybe you are teaching about it. I mean, sometimes that happens. Or maybe you're doing stream of consciousness writing. I see a lot of Cancers, especially Cancer risings, doing stream of consciousness writing at this time. So if you're a Cancer with Saturn in the 9th right now, who's trying to get a publishing deal, or you're trying to manifest, yeah, a big writing project or something, try stream of consciousness writing. That Gemini new moon in the 12th can be very good for that. Also, Mars and Venus in Leo in the 2nd house. You're investing in your raw talents, your natural talents in a new way. So maybe some Cancers are picking up an instrument again, or singing again, or they're, you know, picking up painting again or arts. I think a lot of Cancers are going to feel more creative during June. They're going to make collages. They're going to be doing something that, like, you know, is just like for the love of it. They're going to value creativity more. But you also may be attracting more income or a new income stream. So I think for Cancers, like financially, with Leo in the 2nd, with Mars and Venus in the 2nd, you're making a lot of new connections, just like all the signs, right? Everyone's socializing at this time, but you're making a lot of new connections that may have a monetary, that may be beneficial monetarily. And squaring Jupiter in the 11th, you know, some of these connections could come through those groups, those communities. And there may be someone you meet through a friend or in a community who has a financial opportunity for you. Or maybe some Cancers may be joining like a band or something, or a group of creatives. because like Jupiter in the 11th, that's groups with a like-minded mission. I think some Cancers are, you know, making moves artistically at this time. So I think that's great. Let's talk about Leo. Let's move on to Leo. So you have the Sag full moon. You know, you have the Sag full moon in your 5th house. That's nice. So the Sag full moon, you know, I think this is really reinvigorating for you. Or sorry. Well, I think it's reinvigorating because Mars is in Leo now. I don't know if the Sag full moon per se is that moment for that, but you know, all throughout June, like Leo, you have Mars and eventually Venus in Leo. So I think Leos in June are the most like, they're benefiting the most from all these energies. So you're going to be the most romantic, the most, well, apart from Geminis. Geminis might be a little bit more social here, but you're going to be really social. You're going to be really creative. You're going to be feeling, again, romantic, energized. And I think that, you know, for you, like you're going to be on the cutting edge of something creative here. But the Sag full moon, you're wrapping up a creative project, or maybe you're speaking passionately about something. You're beginning, you know, alongside, I mean, maybe you're just presenting something. Maybe you are performing something. You know, maybe you're making really engaging content, a video, or you're putting on a show. Like I could see Leo's really doing well with that. But you're beginning to grow in your career along the way, by the way, because Jupiter, which rules Sag, is in your 10th house. So maybe you're traveling for work, and that's where you're giving the Sagittarian presentation in the 5th house on a stage. A lot of you are discovering new opportunities in your career. Jupiter in the 10th, you know, can be very nice. You know, you're reaching out for more. You're getting recognition. You know, you're making a bigger splash in the public eye. So I think for Leos, this is like, I think you're tired of Jupiter in the 9th. I don't think Jupiter in the 9th was like necessarily everything you wanted it to be. Jupiter in the 10th, though, like you could reach a lot more people in your career. Again, just grow, get promoted, gain more responsibilities in a good way. And if you're trying to become more well-known, even that's possible at this time. With Saturn in the 8th, still, some of you could be starting a business. And with Mars in the 1st, you're feeling really competitive, entrepreneurial. You know, the only downside to all this is like maybe you're clashing with a partner over finances and career choices, because like for a lot of you, Pluto's still in your 7th house in Aquarius for much of June. But I want to talk about the Gemini new moon, because I think that that is really clear cut in a good way for Leos. So Gemini new moon is activating your 11th house. So maybe there's a new friendship that you're forming, a new group that you're belonging to, maybe a new social media project you're launching. And we have finally Venus at that time in Leo in your 1st house. Now for Leos, this is, again, really good for initiating new relationships, whether they are romantic, platonic, or professional. You are maybe launching new creative projects, just being charismatic, being engaging, and it's paying off in your career. So it's like, if you're a Leo, you're going to get recognized. Like people are just going to like feel like, you know, they know you, or they're going to feel like they want to know you. They're going to feel like they want to give you an opportunity. So I think for Leos, like financially, professionally, like this is a good time, socially as well. But also, you know, I feel like with, you know, yeah, I mean, I think with Leo retrograding, I want to talk about this briefly. I don't want to, I'm hesitating because I don't want to dramatize anything. But like with Venus retrograding eventually in Leo, some of your exes are probably coming back around this time. So you may be initiating some new relationships, but eventually Venus will retrograde in July and August and part of September. And when it retrogrades in your 1st house, like you're almost guaranteed to re-encounter an ex. So if you're a Leo sun or Venus or rising, or maybe even moon a little bit, I think exes are coming back pretty clearly. And honestly, with Pluto still being in Aquarius, at least in the beginning of June, there's a small chance that like some of these exes are coming back to like demand money, or like, you know, they're getting into some type of financial dispute with you. But apart from that, I think like Leo's, like you have charisma right now. You have charisma. Groups, like new friendships, like they want to be around you right now. And Jupiter in the 10th, you're getting recognition, you're getting promoted probably over the next year while Jupiter's in Taurus. But even right now, I think that like you could even like take on more than one career at this time. So maybe Saturn's in your 8th and you're starting a small business, but you're still working somewhere else. Or maybe you have a small business, but you're starting another business. So I think for Leo's, like, this is about being a maverick, being enterprising, being adventurous, being creative, starting things that have money involved, starting businesses again, striking charismatic connections, putting on an engaging show. And again, all of this will funnel into your Jupiter in your 10th house, into that career expansion. So I like what's happening for Leos in June as well. I haven't disliked, by the way, any of these June forecasts yet. I think that the Leo Taurus square so far is pretty exciting. So let's talk about Virgos. Okay, so I think Virgos, this is where it gets a little bit more serious. And I'm objective. So you may see some content out there where people are telling you, they're hyping everybody up and they're saying, it's, everything is always better. Everything is always improving. Everything's better than you think it is. I'm not that type of astrologer. I'm like very objective. I come from data analytics background. I'm not going to BS with you. I do think I do think Virgos have a lot to work on still. And that kind of goes for all the mutable signs, by the way. I think Geminis like weirdly are in like a pretty good position, but you'll see that like, Virgo, Pisces, and Sag are a little bit more serious because you're getting some confrontations from Saturn because Saturn is in the angular houses here. And for Geminis, Saturn's in the angular house of the 10th house. But I think Saturn in the 10th, yeah, it can be an epic come down from a career. But for a lot of Geminis, it's like that's when you can manifest your career. So Saturn is comfortable in the 10th house, right? That's an accidental dignity. Saturn actually sort of, thrives in that kind of career-related house. But anyways, for Virgos, why is it a little serious time? It's because you have Saturn in your 7th house. And you also have Mars in the 12th house. So it's kind of like what I'll talk about here is like, insomnia, sleep may be a little challenging with Mars in the 12th. Saturn in the 7th, it's like, relationships are just taking on a more serious tone at this time. So anyway, so Virgos, especially around the Sag full moon, well, what's happening here? I think, with Saturn in the 7th, you're taking a more sober approach to life. And you're seeking more long-term relationships, quality over quantity, which can be a good thing. But on the Sag full moon, I think some of you are moving, changing something about your home, or wrapping up a home project. Maybe you're having a serious partner move in. With Jupiter and the ruling planets, Jupiter in the 9th, maybe you're planning big trips or educational moves. So I think a lot of Virgos could be moving around this time. And I talked about this in my 2023 forecast way back 6 months ago. Which you can still purchase, by the way. But Jupiter is in the 9th here. So I do like that for getting away. But with that full moon in the 4th, I think a lot of you are fed up with where you are in your home and you want to try a different, different country, different state, different city. Or you're enrolling in an educational program. That means you can't live in your current place anymore. So I think for Virgos, the Sag full moon, it could also be an emotional moment with a family member. Sometimes Saturn in the 7th, it feels like maybe even there's like a parent who's making us feel like there's a burden in our lives or something, or a parent is causing a lot of friction. So if that's the case, maybe there's an emotional dialogue with a parent. But I do want to jump to the Gemini new moon, which looks a little bit maybe more promising. Because the Gemini new moon's in your 10th house, right? And the 10th house is that's your career. So the Gemini new moon, I feel like, that is the 10th house. That could be the beginning of a new career. That could be the beginning of just a new responsibility. That could be an important conversation with a parent or an authority figure. That could be, just agreeing to a new professional responsibility. So I think a lot of Geminis may be moving, or sorry, Virgos may be moving and starting a new career or starting a new educational program. And if you're starting a new educational program, this Gemini new moon could be a relationship, a dialogue you're striking up with, one of those professors or teachers or educators, or you're becoming an educator. Some Virgos, like, you could become a teacher around this time. Gemini new moon in the 10th. So now we also have Mars and Venus, though, in the 12th house in Leo, squaring Jupiter in the 9th. That's a complicated transit because in the 12th house, Mars in the 12th, you want to be careful with your sleep cycle. Your sleep cycle may be a little disrupted this month. You may have a little insomnia or trouble sleeping. But Mars in the 12th is also looking to escape. Mars in the 12th is motivated to get just away from the 3D. So for some of you, you may be motivated to escape through more unfortunate means. But some of you maybe I mean just by like watching television and just like numbing yourself and withdrawing. But other Virgos, you may actually be, transcending. Mars in the 12th may be motivated to build a relationship with the divine, to invest in more meditative practices, to focus on mental health. Because sometimes Mars in the 12th is a restless mind and a feeling of, again, lack of sleep or, a feeling of unease. But it can also be motivated to tackle these things, to figure these things out. Like, why am I having this trouble? Maybe I should meditate more. Maybe I should do more breath work or, more mindfulness training. So I think for Virgos, this could be actually a time of like cleaning house, and realizing like, again, you're a lot of Virgos are getting rid of their party friends, and it's like you're realizing I don't want to go into the 12th house for those reasons of like drinking. Right. I'd rather go into that 12th house by finding people who are doing, again, more transcendental activities, spiritual activities. And I think with Mars and Venus in the 12th, some of you could have secretive relationships, to be honest, or behind the scenes relationships, or you could find karmic relationships. Like I think about the 12th house sometimes as past lives. So I think you're maybe having a conversation with someone who you have a karmic connection with from a past life. Or with Leo being creative, some of you could create the next like big film, Leo in the 12th can be very good at channeling something creatively, creative writing, creative visions, just having a dream and then realizing, oh, I want to perform that. I want to create a play, a stage play based on the dream I had. So if you're a Virgo in June here, your dreams can be very much positive for you and helpful for you in terms of kind of fueling your creativity. And squaring Jupiter in the 9th, some of you could be traveling somewhere that's very enlightening, spiritually speaking. So now we have Libra. So Libra, you have the what's going on with Libras here? Well, you have a Sag full moon in your 3rd house of communication. So with the Sag full moon in your 3rd house, you could be publishing something, traveling locally, maybe long distance as well. You could be like having an emotional conversation with someone. You could be becoming more social. Because I say that because Mars and Leo is in your 11th house at that point. So Libra is like you're investing a lot more in communities. You're probably, as a Libra, doing something. You're taking a risk to do something more of a leadership. You're taking a leadership position to do something creative in front of a group of people. So maybe you're hosting a show, or maybe you're, creating and performing something in front of your friends. Maybe you're performing with a band, maybe you are performing. I think a lot of Libras could even be investing in their social media in a new way. With Mars and Leo in the 11th, you're doing more creative things on social media. You're, again, expressing your creativity in front of an audience. Or maybe you're finding a group of like-minded people through a charity or a nonprofit, and you're investing in that. But I think Libras are doing a lot of group activities in June, and they're doing something creative. But But also the Sag, well, let's talk about, the investing side of things, because Jupiter is in Taurus, right? In your 8th house. And Jupiter in Taurus in the 8th, you could be benefiting from an inheritance while Jupiter's in Taurus, which is really playing out over the whole next year. So all the way through May of 2024, but you could be benefiting from an inheritance. You could be, just getting more perspective on your finances with Uranus there. You could be seeking alternative sources of revenue. You could be like also benefiting from an investment, banking off of an investment, I think that you also are getting perspective on your subconscious. The 8th house is really some of our traumas, right? And it's some of the things that we haven't dug up. With Jupiter in the 8th, I think you're going to want to learn more about psychology or how the human mind even like works, you may feel more psychic while Jupiter's in the 8th. But I think in general, you'll have better instincts. So Libras, while Jupiter's in your 8th house, again, from May of this year until May of next year, you may have better instincts about how to earn money and what to invest in. So I think that's quite nice. Saturn in the 6th, you may have some icy relationships, meaning not so great. You may relationships with coworkers. You may feel disconnected from a manager or a coworker at this time. You may feel as though you have to concentrate on your health or your work process quite a bit and optimize your process and almost become somewhat of a machine. But now I want to talk about the Gemini new moon. The Gemini new moon is accenting your 9th house. So you're initiating with that Gemini new moon, maybe initiating a new educational program, a new trip. Maybe you're learning about history actually in a new way. Some of you could be just learning about something, again, taking a new educational path. But at that point, we have Mars and Venus in Leo, which I think is quite nice for, again, socializing. So by the second half of June, Libras will be absolutely creating in front of that audience, creating in front of friends. Maybe finding a romantic partner through a friend group. That could be a Libra moment there. Joining a new artist collective or a co-op or something. You could, I think you're just going to have a lot more fun with your friends at this time. And some of you also, again, are just, maybe you're like joining like a class. You're taking a class on like, ceramics or something. You're doing something artistic there. Which I think is again quite encouraging. And sorry, one more thing I wanted to backtrack to. Mercury will be conjunct Uranus on the Sag full moon in your 8th there. So I think you're in the early June, you're getting like a sudden download about like your subconscious is just coming to the surface. You're recovering a repressed memory. But others are just getting like a flash of insight about, oh, this is what I want to invest in, or this is my financial strategy. Some of you may be merging bank accounts with a partner actually as well. But I like the, honestly, I think I like the Mars. Mainly I like the Mars and Venus energy in the 11th. Squaring Jupiter in the 8th. There could be some friendships there that actually give you like somehow there's a friendship there maybe that leads to more financial opportunities, or maybe there's a performance in the 11th house that gets you some kind of deal. So I like what Libras are doing in crowds. I like what Libras are doing in front of audiences. I like what Libras are doing with friends. All of those 11th house activities, there's a connection to Jupiter in the 8th. So maybe you're investing in a business with a friend. That would be another manifestation of that. So Libras, pay attention to your friendships, invest in your friendships at this time. I think that somehow they will either just give you a perspective on how you should actually be investing, financially, or they will want to work with you and collaborate with you on something artistic or financial. So that's a really key strategy at that time. So now let's talk about Scorpios. Let me take a swig of water as well. So now we have Scorpios. So what's going on with Scorpios? Well, you have the Sag full moon, really in your second house. So, I think the Sag full moon, combined with Mars in the 10th and Jupiter in the 7th, maybe you're manifesting a new income. But because you're really competitive in your career right now, because you have Mars in the 10th. You also are building tons of new relationships with Jupiter in the 7th. So I think you may be getting a new income opportunity in early June. But you also may be projecting, because, Sag is really good at projecting or selling or conveying something. Scorpios, you may be conveying something that makes use of, you're selling an idea or selling a concept that makes use of your natural talents. Or you may be, if you're in sales, you may be selling something big. Like you may make a big cut a big deal with someone, or you may be securing the finances for a trip, or you may be finishing a financial investment in a trip, like a retreat or like just a travel plan that you have. I think you're sorting out finances related to a trip in the beginning of June. But anyways, just to continue, you have Mars in your 10th right now, or in June around this time. So you are absolutely taking more risks, taking chances in your career. You're doing something very daring that's like creative, expressive. Maybe there's an audience involved, but you're blazing a new trail creatively. Scorpios, you're doing something you probably haven't done before in June. And it doesn't have to be in front of an audience, but it's creative and it's joyful and it's heart-centered. And then with Jupiter in the 7th, you may be attracting business deals through professional connections. You may be meeting more people. You may be finding new relationships, significant relationships. You may be starting a new relationship. You may be meeting people from other countries, other cultures, other perspectives, people who have financial opportunities for you. And with Saturn in the 5th, for most of you, you're really trying to manifest a creative project. You're getting serious about your creative projects. So this is when you launch that creative project, is in June. Now we have a Gemini new moon in your 8th house around June 17th. Gemini in the 8th, you may be signing financial contracts. When I think of Gemini, I think of like paperwork and appointments and sort of that just everyday paperwork kind of stuff. And in the 8th, maybe it's financial. Maybe you're signing a financial agreement. Maybe you're signing a publishing agreement with Gemini, which is writing. Some of you could be revealing a secret or talking about something that happened behind closed doors that you previously repressed or were hiding from somebody. So you may like confess something. But also Venus and Mars in the 10th. I like that. I think you're forming a lot of new relationships with coworkers, bosses, managers, or with the public. Maybe you're reaching more people. Maybe you're engaging more people. Again, making more money in your career. I like Scorpios for June in terms of career. I think your career looks really strong in June. I think you're making a lot of good moves. Like maybe you're getting promoted. Maybe you're starting a new career. Maybe you're making more money. Like maybe you're monetizing something new in your career. Again, you're building a lot of professional connections. So if you're a Scorpio, keep your LinkedIn active, or just like be present at work, in the office or whatever you're doing. Like if you have to give a big speech at work, I think that's positive as well. Like I think that a lot of you are probably selling yourself at work in a good way, where you're like giving that presentation that leads to a promotion, or you're presenting something, in front of a big audience. You're getting recognized for that, and you're eventually attracting money. But I think with Venus retrograde in the 10th, eventually, all these professional relationships that you start, you're going to be rethinking, reapproaching them, and building on this. So really make sure you have strong connections, professional connections at this time. But also the 10th house can be a parent. So some of you may be reconnecting with a parent who you lost touch with. So yeah, Scorpios overall, I think you're in a pretty good spot. So Sag, let's talk about Sag. So Sagittarius, you have the Sag full moon at the beginning of June in your first house. So that's where your emotions are really coming up to the surface. You're feeling very emotional about something. You're feeling more vulnerable. You're feeling more open emotionally. Some of you may be changing homes, actually, because Saturn's in the fourth. You know, maybe you're feeling compelled to move in with or move out of someone's home. You know, along the way, some of you may be wanting more flexibility with work, with Jupiter and Uranus in the sixth now. I think a lot of Sag risings are looking to move somewhere that gives them more flexibility, or because they have flexibility at work, they can move. So I'm talking like, I can see Sag risings, like maybe you're moving to Mexico City and being a digital nomad, something like that. And I know a lot of Sag risings, especially, but even Sagittarius is general. You're not that satisfied with where you're living right now. A lot of you signed leases that you regret. A lot of you just decided, I'm going to kick the can down the road. I'm going to keep my apartment. I'm going to re-sign my lease, or I'm going to move in with somebody. But I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be in this town. A lot of Sages, you're realizing at the beginning of June that you'd probably rather live somewhere else. So I think a lot of Sag risings, and if you're a late Scorpio rising, by the way, this could still apply to you. You know, a lot of Sag risings, you're realizing, hey, I don't have to be tied down to a specific city right now. I have Jupiter and Uranus in my sixth. You know, I can make money not doing 9 to 5. I can do 5, you know, I can do 9 to 12, and then, you know, 5 to 9 later in the evening. So I think a lot of Sages are becoming digital nomads. You have Mars in your ninth in Leo. I mean, come on, you're initiating a new trip, or you're traveling somewhere, or you're exploring or thinking about a new country you want to live in. So I think it's pretty clean cut. I think this is what Sages are doing. I'd be a little surprised if Sages aren't doing something like this, where they're either considering a move, they're settling in somewhere that gives them the flexibility at work, or maybe some Sages are just building a gym at their home, or, you know, Jupiter in the sixth, they're seeking to expand their fitness regimen, or they're just kind of joining a new gym, or they're committing to working out more after their day is done. Like there's something with that. But with the Gemini new moon, June 17th, maybe some of you are starting and initiating new relationships. You're initiating new relationships, starting a lot of new significant friendships, starting conversations with someone who could become your mentor, your advisor. And then Mars and Venus and Leo in the ninth. A lot of Sages are maybe they're investing in a new educational path. Some of you are forming a lot of relationships on the road or while traveling. Some of you are getting a publishing deal, actually. Others are actually becoming more optimistic about the future, or just getting a better worldview. Some of you may become travel influencers. You may... Yeah, I think for Sagittarius, traveling is really fortunate for you right now. Like when you travel, like, and I know Saturn's in your fourth right now, so you don't feel like traveling always. You feel like a burden. There's an anchor in the home that's burdening or tying you to the home. But like you want to explore right now. Up in the ninth house, you want to explore and maybe find new relationships abroad, or find relationships in other countries. Or again, just monetize something that you can sell, or that you can write about, or that you can learn about. Some Sagittarius actually may be stepping into a new role as an educator or as a teacher. But with Jupiter and Uranus in the sixth, think about how you can use technology to give you the flexibility, like I said, to move somewhere else, or to be a nomad, or to, just settle into a home that doesn't feel like such a buzzkill with Saturn. That's maybe digitally, it's like a modernized home, or it's just a home that allows you to live that, again, that modern life. I feel like a broken record at this point, so I'm going to move on. Because I think the meaning was pretty consistent for Sag there. So Capricorns. Capricorns, you have the Sag full moon. Where is Sag? Right here in the 12th house. So yeah, you have the Sag full moon in the 12th house. That's very much about spiritual epiphanies, dreams, or visions that fuel maybe creativity with Jupiter in the 5th right now. For some it could be potentially karmic moments. Some of you may be thrown into disarray a little bit there. Because maybe with Sag is about the truth. Sag is about conveying a message. So some of you may be inspired to convey a spiritual message, but some of you may receive a message that is like in a dream that's like inspiring your creativity. But some of you also may receive a message about like, hey, with the 12th house, it's like we're closing something, winding something down, or there's a karmic thing that happens there. But I think there's enough positivity and creativity for Caps right now, because you have Jupiter in the 5th. You have Jupiter in the 5th right now, which is expanding your creativity. You're looking to maybe perform in front of an audience. You're looking to create a business. You're looking to even maybe start a family at this time. But with the Sag full moon in the 12th, that's a little trippy, but it's kind of like, there's again, spiritual downloads, spiritual truths that are just suddenly becoming like you're getting a message. Capricorns are getting a message from a spirit or a spirit guide in the beginning of June. There's almost like a spirit that maybe you didn't even know about that's just coming into your life. Maybe if you're not even that spiritual, it's like I keep hearing about this. There's this wisdom that someone from a different world or even an ancestor just wants me to know and understand. So with Mars in the 8th, that could be investing in passionate love, like merging with someone completely, if you take my meaning. It could be like, yeah, like a passionate, kind of spicy moment. And with Jupiter in the 5th, I talked about this in my 2023 forecast way back last year. This may be when some Capricorns start a family, maybe intentionally or otherwise. I just, if you're a Capricorn, like just be a little careful right now, because I just see like a lot of like themes of like birth. Now, some Capricorns may birth a business with Mars in the 8th. Some Capricorns may be just really arguing over money and possessions. I could see that a little bit, but Capricorns are being creative right now. So again, whether you're birthing literally or birthing a business or you're birthing a creative project, I'm just seeing a lot of creation here, a lot of creative power. And you have Saturn in the 3rd for a lot of you. Maybe you're taking a writing project seriously. Maybe you're having a serious conversation about the long term or the future, things like that. But Mars in the 8th can also really do a lot of shadow work. So you can really dig into like past traumas, things like that. So now, and sorry, one more thing. Just remember Jupiter in the 5th, which I know you're not seeing it in the 5th here, but like for a lot of people, it's in the 5th. Jupiter's about good luck, right? And like Jupiter in the 5th means you gain good luck when you express yourself creatively and freely. And squaring Mars and Leo in the 8th, you can monetize some of your creative passions at this time. Or again, build a business off of something creative. So I like that. Now the Gemini new moon's in the 6th. So the Gemini new moon for Caps, that's maybe a new work relationship, a new work project, a new fitness routine. Gemini's conversations, right? So like maybe you're just having a conversation with a new coworker. It's like you're meeting a new coworker. Or again, you're starting at a new gym in your neighborhood, because Gemini's neighborhoods. Anyways, Mars and Venus. Now Venus is in the 8th. So there's a really big financial theme for Capricorns in the second half of June. I think in the second half of June, you're really discussing like shared resources, savings, mortgages, assets, investments, especially in a partnership with Mars and Venus in the 8th. You're talking about agreements. You're talking about, you're talking about financial agreements. And maybe some of you are doubling down on business ventures. Maybe some of you are forming business partnerships. Other people, you may have some relationships come up here that are very like subconscious, like you're almost anxiously attached to them, or it feels karmic, or it feels like it's part of your evolution. Like you could have a transformative relationship there in the 8th house. So if you're a Cap and you're like, I don't want to start a family or anything like that, then this could just be a very powerful, all-consuming, obsessive, but transformative relationship that you're starting in the second half of June. And it's helping you further your evolution as a person. I mean, it could be something like very, very profound. And you have like you're merging with them completely. Like, I think that could be quite exciting. But, if I think about Venus, where is Venus, Taurus rules Venus, or sorry, Venus rules Taurus and Libra. With all this Taurus really in the 5th house, I think this could be like a very romantic time as well. So I think for a lot of Capricorns, you're going on a lot of dates, maybe going on some dates, and they're leading into that 8th house. They're going behind closed doors. Like I can't really actually talk about the Capricorn forecast completely, unfortunately, because I just can't. But hopefully you understand like where I'm kind of going with that whole forecast. Like it's actually it's pretty interesting. It's pretty profound. And it's a little all-consuming for some of you. So anyways, just for Caps again, intense relationships, creative relationships, but also potentially financial disputes or financial starts, initiations, like of a business. So now let's talk about Aquarius. Aquarius, the Sag full moon, that's in your 11th house. So that could be a social expansion, finding new communities as a result of moving, because you have Jupiter in the 4th, saying goodbye to some friends because you're moving. For some people with Mars in the Mars in the 7th at that time, you may have conflict with a partner. And at that time, by the way, you have actually the best chance out of any sign of exes re-entering the picture over the summer. So once Venus enters Leo, that may happen. But Jupiter in the 4th, some of you are traveling a lot or moving. Saturn in the 2nd, you're pretty serious about your financial picture. But I think for a lot of Aquariuses, Pluto's in your 1st house, kind of more or less around the Sag full moon. You're transforming, you're reaching a new height, and you're raising to the ground parts of you that no longer serve you. And maybe that leads to some arguments in relationships. And you want to assert your independence a little bit more with Mars in the 1st or in the 7th. But maybe some of you are initiating new relationships. But whether you're moving or not, I think that 11th house is real active in the beginning of June with that Sag full moon. So again, like maybe you're having a very emotional moment with some friends. Maybe you're, again, just because the full moon doesn't have to be an ending. It could also be an illumination. So maybe you're stepping into a new group. But Jupiter in the 4th, it could just be that your home is a source of inspiration, big picture thoughts, things like that. But I want to jump to the Gemini new moon, which is in your 5th. I think that's nice. 5th house has associations with Leo, so maybe that's a new date, a new sense of romance, a new creative project that you're starting. Maybe a new performance. Maybe you're performing, acting. Maybe you're talking. Gemini's talking. Maybe you're talking about something you're passionate about. Maybe you're embarking on a new creative project, writing project, specifically with Gemini. And then Venus is finally in your 7th at that time. So in the second half of June, we're talking tons of new significant relationships being formed. Maybe a new business partner that you're finding. Maybe some arguments in relationships. But for Aquarius, is like, I think you have an embarrassment of riches right now with the amount of relationships you're forming in June. It's almost more about, with Venus retrograding eventually, kind of like I said with another sign, you're casting a wide net and then sorting out and prioritizing which friendships or relationships do I want to keep. So for Aquarius, is expect in the second half of June to be starting a lot of new one-on-one relationships. Some of you may find a mentor at that time as well. That can be the 7th house, or you're becoming a mentor, you're consulting with people, you're forming a relationship with someone who's famous, or entertaining, which is Leo, or you're starting to date an entertainer or someone. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting things that can happen there. But a lot of you have moved, or you're traveling right now. And so when you come back from your travels, maybe you're just looking for new relationships, or maybe you just moved. And that's why you're looking for new relationships. But Aquarius is like, you're going on adventures in June. And maybe you're meeting a partner while you're traveling there. Some of you may, also just like monetize something related to the home, weirdly. Like maybe you're flipping a home, or but I think also a lot of Aquarius could be getting married in June. There we go. I was trying to search for that last thing. So a lot of Aquariuses are getting married in the second half of June, and you're moving in. Jupiter is making more room in the home. You're moving in to a bigger home with your spouse. Maybe some of you are planting roots. Maybe some of you are having a family, birthing. Some Aquarius is actually also made, like Caps, maybe also giving birth at this time. So yeah, there's something about Aquarius and Capricorns I'm just seeing with like family, relationships. You're creating things, you're being creative, and you're making space. Maybe you're making space for a new partnership. And I think if you're an Aquarius and you just recently moved cities or countries, then you're paving the way for those new relationships. But again, some of you may just be getting into your own, like building your own consulting practice. Like some of you are going to be watching this and like, I'm not getting married, I'm not moving. I mean, again, these are all various manifestations of archetypes, right? But I think a lot of you are starting new relationships. Like, I think a lot of you are like, maybe even like saying, like getting engaged or saying yes to somebody, or you're meeting your future spouse. I mean, it could be like that dramatic. Or you're finding someone who just like respects your creativity more. So we're on the last sign, Pisces. So what's happening for Pisces? So the Sag full moon is it's in your not your sixth. The Sag full moon's in your 10th house. So for some of you, you may be ending or switching careers, or maybe using writing or communication capabilities in your career more often. Some of you are publishing something very publicly. But I think for a lot of Pisces, this is when you're making the career change, or you're ending a responsibility at work. Now with Mars entering Leo in the 6th, you're emphasizing fitness, putting a lot of energy into that, but also some of you may be clashing with a coworker or with coworkers. And some of you may be craving more independence in your work process, in your day-to-day routines. But I think a lot of you are starting with Mars in the 6th, full moon in the 10th. In the beginning of June, a lot of Pisces are ending a career and starting a new one. They're starting a new process. And sorry, something I forgot about Scorpio risings. I think a lot of Scorpio risings are introducing themselves to so many people that they may find a new job, even if they lost a job. So I just had a random download about that, but I want to remember that. So you also have Jupiter in your 3rd house for most Pisces. So writing projects are becoming, ideas are just flowing at that point. You're writing a lot more, you're communicating a lot more. Some of you may monetize a podcast or create a communications related endeavor. Other Pisces may be starting an educational journey or teaching or traveling a lot. And then the Gemini new moon is in your 4th house. So some Pisces are settling into a new home, actually, in the second half of the month. Some of you are communicating again with a parent. Some of you are signing a lot of contracts in the home, talking to your landlord, rearranging the rent or something. But also, Venus and Mars are in your 6th at that time. So you're building a lot of new relationships with coworkers, or maybe with people at your gym. You could fall in love with someone at work, honestly, or at your gym as well. Some Pisces are going to be refining their creative process, because I think about the 6th house as the machinations, right? The machinations of things, the operational side of things. Mars, Venus, and Leo, you're really getting crafty with something artistic. And it's squaring Jupiter in the 3rd. So maybe you're monetizing your writing projects. Or maybe you're getting recognized as a highly skilled writer or communicator at work. Maybe you're selling a script. Maybe you're writing a lot of really interesting ad copy. I think I think Pisces are doing a lot of creative activities in their job. That's the most succinct way I could put it. So you're flexing your writing and your communication muscles in work and outside of work. Also, you still have Saturn in Pisces, obviously, in your 1st house. So a lot of Pisces, you're still looking to reset your career. You're looking to begin and embark on a new professional track. So maybe this is when it happens. I mean, this could be really a nice breakthrough. Maybe you speak your truth and you're like, this is the job I want. And then you manifest it. And then you start it and you're working in the trenches all of a sudden. And you're doing really good work. The 6th house is also about service. You're serving people through a hard skill set. So maybe you're giving people, you're utilizing your gifts and your skills. Some of you may start working in medicine. 6th house can be about the medical industry. Pisces also has associations with the medical field. But I think a lot of you're flipping the script with what you're working on, what you're doing for work, where you're living, and how you're applying your skills in your 9 to 5. And by the way, if you're a Pisces, you should probably have a writing project on the side because it's flowing right here. So get a diary, get a journal, start that book. And so let's conclude this. So as I've described, June is very powerful. June is passionate. June is romantic. June is creative. June is expansive. And a lot of you are going to be thinking bigger when it comes to connections and relationships. So the whole time throughout the video, I was talking about how, you could be initiating more relationships with people who are more aligned with what you love, with your heart. And just wait, though, because eventually in the rest of the summer, Venus is going to reach a square with Uranus, which doesn't quite happen in June yet. June is more of a breakthrough where it's like, I'm building new connections. In the later part of the summer, those connections are they alter your values and what you prioritize in your life. And you're going to have a very non-traditional or non-conformist approach to relationships. Like some of you might not even be interested in like a traditional relationship or monogamy at that point. But this is where a lot of the relationships begin, is in June. And so many people are going to be picking up or rediscovering that creative passion. So I think June is a time to not overthink. June is a time to express yourself. June is a time to express what your heart wants. It's not a very logical month. I will tell you that. It's not a very logical month. It's a month where you're just taking a leap to explore your passions, and maybe with Jupiter in Taurus to monetize them. So the net of this reading, follow your passions to the fullest extent and strategize from a financial perspective, how you can make that your job and how you can do that for the rest of your life. So I would like to thank you for listening to this forecast. Let me know in the comments if this resonated with you. By the way, my readings are actually sold out now for the entire year. So if you want to see me in 2023, you're going to have to wait till next year. Thank you to those of you who booked already. I am teaching courses every once in a while, so check those out. I also am hosting a retreat in Croatia So there's still a couple spots left. So consider booking that. I believe the deadline is in early June, but book by the Sag full moon, which is June 3rd. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to email me. And thank you so much for following me. And also make sure you do subscribe to this video if you haven't already. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a great June.